All right, brosifs, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. Yes, indeed. I'm reliving the early 2010s, as you can tell, by my style of dress. I find this amusing. Anyway, yeah, let's make sure that we're live. Let's see. Rumble Rants is working. Is the video working? Time will tell. I'm going to have to refresh it twice. Sup, bro? Yeah, man. Yo. Tubular. Yes, we've got a lot of good news. Actually, we've got breaking news with regards to Kirsten Sinema. I'm going to go full razor fist on that, I suppose. I happen to agree with him on his sentiments with regards to her particular character. I am having a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue at the moment. I had a couple of problems earlier actually getting the internet to work. So my hope is that there are no drops and nothing terrible happens. So because we've got primo news today. We've got Twitter leaks Twitter files part 2. Sinema abandoning the Democratic Party. We've got the really weird Bill Clinton Orthodox rabbi incident, Game Awards. I don't know which one because I don't give a fuck about Game Awards. We'll launch right into it. Comic Toby 420. Good morning, Daddy. Anyway, we'll go through the Twitter thread really quick. This is from Barry Weiss. Of course, she is the one that's disseminating the material from the second batch of drops on Twitter with regards to their censorship. They're working with the U.S. government at multiple levels, unconstitutionally, I would add, and other shenanigans. It turns out that Jack Dorsey, Agrawal, and others lied. Twitter does involve itself with shadow banning, or at least did until fairly recently. I do not consider it a coincidence that all of a sudden engagement on the site, the number of followers for my own personal Twitter account skyrocketed and is still much higher than it was in the wake of the shadow banning era ending. I have a feeling these two things are linked. And what I pointed out this morning is this. It goes far beyond just the Twitter files and Twitter as a website. YouTube involves itself with algorithmic demotion and shadow banning. Meta certainly does, formerly Facebook, and other sites as well. It would be stupid to think that Twitter is the only one that got the idea. It'd be stupid to think that the feds didn't involve themselves with trying to use the same portals and practices on other sites. It wouldn't make any sense. Why would you target Twitter, which was the smallest of the social media firms, the mainline ones at least, and leave Facebook or YouTube alone? It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm sure that Apple and Google as the App Store duopoly have been subjected to the same thing. So it turns out that all of us creators that were called conspiracy theorists or, hey, has-beens, you're sour grapes because you're not growing as fast. Turns out we were right, at least in regards to Twitter. I have a feeling that we're right with regards to other sites too. Again, as I pointed out years ago, if I suddenly go from gaining 200-300 subscribers on YouTube a day to barely breaking even and maybe making a little bit of headway, like fucking 50 people, that's not a change in my content. It hasn't affected any other platform that I'm on. It only is in effect on YouTube. It means that it's a change with the algorithm that they use on site. And that's the truth. We will eventually get evidence of that, I hope, as well, for other websites. What Elon Musk should do is use these revelations to pressure other tech firms to back off the algorithmic demotion of content creators who have done literally nothing wrong. We'll wait and see whether that happens. But yes, they made blacklists. I'll just read through a couple. A new Twitter Files investigation reveals that teams of Twitter employees build blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users. So all of those times that something was trending, for the last fucking 5 years, and all of a sudden it got off of trending, it disappeared remarkably quickly, you mean that was Twitter employees? I was told that it was just organic. Jack Dorsey claimed that shadow banning never occurred on his platform. Whoops, I guess he was wrong. He lied to people. By the way, Jack Dorsey does not deserve a redemption arc of any kind. The fact that he's sort of pussyfooting it, he's doing the LSD-soaked former college kid midlife crisis thing, and I can see right through it. I've met people like that. Twitter once had a mission to give everyone the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. Along the way, barriers nevertheless were erected. And you've got Dr. Bhattacharya, Dan Bongino, Charlie Kirk is actually on their shadow ban list. Now, if Charlie Kirk is getting a shadow ban, then that's a pretty low threshold tolerance for shadow banning people. So I imagine that I'm on that list. I posted earlier, I had remembered earlier in my video that there was that, what was it, the Data Society report, and it showed, the malign influencers of the internet, as far as YouTube goes, at least. Now, I was one of the main nodes that they listed on there. It was very funny, on the same order as people like Crowder and shit like that. So no, I've totally not been algorithmically demoted by YouTube. That's exactly why on a site with considerably less users and considerably less subscribers, I'm getting roughly the same amount of engagement on Rumble. There is no shadow ban. It's a conspiracy theory. I thought I'd get that out of the way. Highleaf 11. You think Biden freed the merchant of death because he promised to arm Ukraine with his fingers crossed? No, I think it's for optics. He could get one person instead of two, which he originally demanded. And he chose the person who is woke. He chose the person that progressives would want more to be returned. Scott Christie Jones. Why swap that bloke Grinner for a terrorist? Because of optics. Again, checks all the boxes. A lesbian individual, black, in basketball. Sports ball is a big thing for a lot of Americans. I know women's basketball less so than most, but it's still sports ball. It's bread and circus. Who cares about the fucking U.S. Marine or the linguistics teacher? Fuck them. They don't check enough woke boxes. Fool. Hey, Sticks, remember when the lamestream media wanted Avenatti to run against Trump? Good times. Yeah, they should run him anyway, from his jail cell. That would be a good campaign. He'd probably be in the upper half of Democrats if he ran from a jail cell. Bara, you look unusually refreshed today. Yeah, I got pretty good sleep last night compared to the 3 nights roughly before. Plus, I'm hyper caffeinated. It's fucking clank time. Clank up, biznitch. Yeah, baby. Also, got some French press coffee actually to test out later. Liz wants a cup as well. It'll be feisty times. Symbolic belief. Can you make another video where you rank presidents on a scale from 1 to 100? Where you deduct and add points? That was quietly one of your best videos. Yeah, I could probably do that. Do it for like the early presidents, or like the ones, the crazy ones from the 19th century that nobody likes or remembers. Steady Eddie 1983. Left Ben. Twitter is a private company. They can ban who they want. Left Now. Musk is violating our free speech. Yes, the flip is incredible. Sin of regret. Morning, Sticks. Any thoughts or insights on Carrie Lake's lawsuit? Felt like the federal judge penalizing for a state-level election was inappropriate. Hoping she wins her lawsuit, but not holding my breath. Yeah, she'll get crushed under the bus. I agree with you, unfortunately. Peyton Walter sending 300 big ones. Thank you. Dude, I love the Twitter Files Part 2 rant. Keep up the good work. You're pretty damn funny. Much more to come. Now we got to talk about Kirsten Sinema. Boy, has she thrown a little bit of a wrench in the plans of the fucking Democratic Party. We'll get right to it. Kirsten Sinema says she will leave the Democratic Party. This is one of the main swing vote senators, actually, for their whole fucking... I mean, if Joe Manchin joins her in this, and it's possible, all hell breaks loose. Cue the leftoid saying, well, Sinema was never really a principled Democrat. She occasionally stood her ground on bills. She occasionally deviated with, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Shame on her. One of the first, I think the first lesbian, by the way, in Congress. So they're really, they scramble to attack her, but they can't attack her for the idpol side of things. So they just mention the fact that she's white and outdated. The senator is registering as an independent, noting that she never fit perfectly in either national party. I'm going to go razor fist mode right now. Here's my thoughts. Sinema is not doing this out of principle. I'm sure that Razor Fist is going to have an epic fucking rant about this, by the way. She's not doing it for principle. She's doing it for the same reason Tulsi Gabbard left the Democratic Party. Self-serving reasons. She realizes that the Democratic Party is not going to prop her up in the coming election. She's going to be up for re-election, and she's going to get shit canned. They're going to try to target her from the left. The only way for her to maintain her incumbent position is not to be directly a part of the party. Whether or not she'll even caucus with them is still up in the air. She has not announced that she'll even caucus with the Democrats. She might go full-on independent. She might caucus with the goddamn Republicans. It would be politics making very strange bedfellows at that point. I guess she'd have to join the log cabin group or something like that. If she can do it, though, I think Manchin, he's at least under some pressure to do so. They've talked about primarying him, too. When you face the possibility of your party backing a primary challenger for you and you are in a vulnerable position, what do you want to do? You want independent voters to vote for you. You want independent voters to prop you up in the primary system. Of course, Arizona potentially scrapping the caucus system. If that happens, Sinema continues to be that senator. She may get destroyed by the Republicans in an upcoming election, but she wouldn't get knocked out by her own party. What the party is seeking to do is get a rubber stamp going in the Senate where they can perpetually perpetuate their own agenda, and it's a national agenda. This is very dangerous for Democrats to do. Arizona is a swing state. West Virginia, where Manchin is from, is a red state. If you get rid of Manchin as incumbent and you have a non-incumbent left-wing Democrat running, they will get steamrolled. You're handing the Republicans West Virginia's Senate seat if you do that. The same arguably is true if they knock out Sinema. At this point, it's very, very funny. She has dominated the daily news cycle, knocking out Brittany Griner and the kid who I guess literally plays little Boba Fett in Star Wars Episode 2, rambling about Bill Clinton being an Orthodox rabbi, just to be clear. Oh, boy. What a fucking day. Jesus. Scott Christie Jones, ever thought of arranging a meetup in You mean Amsterdam? No, I don't really want to do meetup stuff because I have a wife and kid and I don't want to go it alone. So, I mean, it might happen in the future. John Smith, another Twitter shout out, please, at Exposing Libs 101. There's your shout out, my boy. Although these days I should say my Zier because, you might identify as female despite being named John. Weirder things have happened. Zim the Despot, I feel accomplished. I managed to fill my deer tag a few weeks ago and managed to get all the venison in the freezer. I'm trying to turn the hide into leather, but I'm not really hopeful. Can't you use like boiled acorns because they're so full of tannin? Can't you use them for leather purposes? I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard of the basic premise, I think. Make some jerky. That's what I'm talking about. Beachaz52, did you see the new Indonesian law that criminalizes sex outside of marriage? Yeah, and I think that's bullshit. People are going to fuck outside of marriage anyway. Yeah, try getting a bunch of rowdy college-age kids to keep it in their pants. See how far that fucking goes. It's not going to change anything. There will be differential enforcement, and the trust fund kid will get caught with his girlfriend. He'll escape. They'll say, well, we didn't actually see his penis inside of her, so we can't prove that they had sex. Meanwhile, the lower class kid will get shit canned and thrown in the gulag for 5 years or something like that. So yeah, Kyrsten Sinema is officially leaving the Democratic Party, which means technically speaking, they don't really have the Senate majority that they wanted. This is, by the way, also career advancement from her. Now they have to wine and dine her while the Republicans are also making her offers because she's a free agent. This gives her even more disproportionate power than she had as a swing vote within the Democratic Party before. Next news story. This is the one about Bill Clinton and the Orthodox rabbi references. Link in the description. By the way, you can follow along with all of these. This is supposedly the actor that played Jango Fett's son, the clonal son of Jango Fett in Star Wars Episode 2, and briefly, I think in Episode 3, if I remember correctly. Did he make an appearance? Actually, I don't think so. It plays a kid that becomes Boba Fett, actually. So now we know that the most feared mercenary, the most feared bounty hunter in the entire galaxy is also an epic shit poster because he goes on stage at the goddamn Game Awards show and he's not supposed to be there. Somehow he snuck aboard in behind these people and they didn't realize, I think, that he was there or just said, fuck it. And then he gives a little mini speech where he says, I would like to dedicate this award to the Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. And then he stands there for a second. The security whisks him away. And Bill Clinton must have been happy because he was briefly relevant for the first time in 20 years, actually. You'll notice not so many people are asking him to climb aboard their campaigns recently. Could it be the whole raped a bunch of people thing? Could it be that? No, not in the Me Too era. Alex Bogey. In Georgia, the Libertarian Senate candidate never answered my calls. Guess his 2% supporters voted Warnock because the candidate was gay. Possibly. I think it broke probably in Warnock's favor in the end, but not by a huge margin. Again, turnout did play a role there, and not so much the ballot printers going brrr in the case of Georgia. They are semi-defortified. Mr. Wonderful, lefties be eating more L's than a one-letter alphabet soup lately. It's like SpaghettiOs, yeah. Happy times. One less blue vote is utterly priceless. Trump Sinema 2024, lols. That will not happen. Keep in mind she is still a leftoid. She's still an idpol leftoid. She's just decided that the party is not going to back her, so she's going to put pressure on the party. That's pressure very much needed. You deserve real money. How bad could CBDCs be, central bank digital currencies? What can be done to beat them? Is Bitcoin adoption the main foil to this? Yeah, the use of regular old crypto is definitely the main foil to them. The risk is, of course, that central banking is always a bad thing. They manipulate currency values, etc., for their own gain, as any corporate complex associated with governments tends to do. Over on Rumble, Sigilstone17, in a video you were asking about a far-right influencer graph. The site you want is datasociety.net. Yeah, I thought so. The report is called Alternative Influence. Just use their search function. Yes, somebody sent in the image of that particular page. Sigilstone17 again, they edited their report since initial release to remove things like Sargon being listed twice on their graph to better hide their stupidity. Somebody get an archive of the original. Matt G. Hammond, his name is pronounced Bongino. I've heard all three, Bongino, Bongino, and Bonhino. So I'm not sure and don't care. The Landlord Harassment Channel, Warwick Krigler, 2024. I would never run for the presidency because if I inexplicably won, I'd have to go to D.C. I'd have to hang around with all the fucking lawyers and filthy politicians. And like Madison Cawthorn states, they'd invite me to coke orgies and weird shit like that. And, you know, my party days are long over at this point. I don't want the coke orgy. I want to cook a game pie or something. By the way, making cranberry sauce tonight. And a kip roulade, among other things. I can't wait to look up recipes later. I bet that's going to smell goddamn fantastic. You have no idea. And I've got sweet potatoes, too. Extra buttery. Next, Adam Schiff got himself ratioed, folks. Again, Adam Schiff was weighing in on Twitter because he doesn't like the direction in which it's going. It's interesting that tax-funded election officials are explicitly putting pressure on a private company via defamation. On Elon Musk's Twitter, you know Adam Schiff is the dude who his lips constantly look like a bloated vulva. Slurs against black people have tripled. Slurs against women are up 33%. Slurs against Jewish people are up 61%. And slurs against gay men are up 58%. What about slurs against white people? That's not on his priority list. Those numbers are abysmal and unacceptable. Today, Representative Mark Takano and I are demanding action. So you're demanding that a private company do things. That's unconstitutional, just to be clear, number one. Number two, then, Elon Musk weighed in. False. Hate speech impressions are actually down by 1/3 on Twitter now versus prior to acquisition, at Community Notes. Now, he ratioed Adam Schiff. His original post got ratioed, as in there's more replies than there are likes on the content. I've been ratioing MSNBC left and right almost every day now for several weeks, by the way. Not difficult. They have no engagement because most of their followers are dead accounts and bots. Boy, oh boy, when those dead accounts are purged, as Elon Musk indicated earlier, I can't wait to see the drop in subscribership on MSNBC and Xinhua News. Now, they'll probably lose at least half. You know, they get 10 likes on a post. They've supposedly got, what, 4 million fucking followers on the platform. I believe that as far as I can throw all of China. It's not very far. To be clear, Schiff didn't learn his lesson. He then followed up with another tweet. Hey, Elon, under your leadership, neo-Nazis, homophobes, and racists are flocking to Twitter and spewing hate speech, which, you know, literally was just debunked, but he's ignoring that. Your denial would be more credible if it was backed up by any real evidence. Like the evidence that Schiff himself did not posit in his original post. At some point, maybe he's just attention-seeking. And if it wasn't followed by a bunch of anti-Semitic QAnon tweets attacking me, you're getting attacked by the site at large. I guarantee that there are fucking liberals there attacking you because they're having fun on the new Twitter because it's better. That's the problem that Schiff has. The problem with Twitter for the lame streamers is that Elon Musk has proven that throttling back suppression and censorship and allowing people to have a public discourse and allow it to go on more unabated is amusing. It is fun. It's a throwback to the older wave of internet. It's not like new tech sites. New tech sites have drawn in disproportionately people that have already been censored. Twitter is disproportionately made up of people who haven't been censored. They may be concerned about censorship, but they themselves are not. But they self-police what they say because of the ever more onerous rules. Now they're not doing that. It's made the site more functional. It's made it larger and it's more fun. That's great. It's wonderful. Arnet23me, hey Sticks, did you hear Stacey Abrams may be charged with charity fraud? Imagine my shock. The odds of her getting in trouble are about as high as Al Sharpton for his tax evasion. In other words, non-existent. It wouldn't be woke. Ozzy's Robots, morning Sticks, my museum is officially open. How about a shameless plug? Clankers can get info on my channel. I see shenanigans on YouTube like likes and views removed and videos flatlined in real time for your information. I've seen it too, by the way. So yes, Ozzy's museum is now open. Not a bad count. Giant Meteor 2024, just ended already. Fool. So are we all just done with Pixel Planet now? No, we will return to Pixel Planet. The Clankers are still filling in all of Africa, by the way, with our colors. Honest jerk. Pixelplanet.fun is never due with you. Ha ha ha. Yeah, we'll return. Oh, done, he said. He followed up. Aaron Bennett, as the front lines of this culture war rage back and forth, will we ever go back to the relative calm of the 80s and 90s? The 80s were a time of extreme racial paranoia. Ever heard of talk shows? Tom Metzger, Louis Farrakhan, David Duke. Also, we'll have a renaissance of pop culture and prosperity like back in the 80s. That's what I'm hoping for. I want Art Deco retro back. E100 Omega 123. Find out who laid the cultural Marxist groundwork in our educational system. Frere, Dewey, Gramsci, and more, all on narrativebusters.org. Heard of it? So yeah, poor Schiff, he gets ratioed. He's in danger of getting ratioed on his follow-up. The next news story is not so funny. And this is one that I've talked about before, and it's a problem. The Supreme Court must stop state courts from hijacking federal elections. Here's the no-win scenario of SCOTUS taking up this case. This particular case has to do with who draws up the maps, makes the rules, etc. Is it, and this is the case, this article is fundamentally correct. Is it the state legislatures duly apportioned by the Constitution, or can judges overrule that and say, well, this looks discriminatory because of my arbitrary definition of what that is, so you can't draw this map up, you can't have this rule, et cetera, et cetera. Can they injunct a legislature from passing such material? The problem is that whether they vote correctly or incorrectly, correctly would be decided with the legislatures. That's clearly where the power is vested in elections. And the governors to an extent as well, of course, because they have veto powers. Or incorrectly, which is to give the courts wide latitude in influencing elections effectively by being able to say yay or nay to election maps, etc. Here's the problem. By making a binding definition of this, you permanently throw things into one of two categories. If you side improperly, that is with the courts, liberal as they tend to be, you're saying that the state legislatures are hereby stripped of a due constitutional power. SCOTUS will have violated the Constitution if they do this. I have a feeling they won't rule that way, by the way. My hope is that it's a limited ruling, just to be clear. If they side with reality, which is that the state legislatures do apportion things for electoral purposes, what they're doing is in states that are already far blue or far red, they're creating a potential perpetual majority for those groups. And that's dangerous. Swing states, you know what will happen. The Democrats will go whole hog. They'll use that new legislative power to stack things in their favor in states they control. The Republicans will hold back. Just so that you know, as we've seen in multiple elections recently, the Republicans will pull their punches. They'll shore up only the most red of states. They will not contest the swing states. They will make no effort to overrun the legislatures in those states in order to make sure to shore up against far-left politics. This is a disaster waiting to happen. My hope is that the court very reasonably takes up a very limited line with very specific parameters only related to the specific grievance in the case and do not issue an overarching ruling making a permanent definition of who controls the election system. My hope is that they punt on this issue because the alternative is somehow worse. It's one of those few instances in which the court, if they fully side with the Constitution, Arguably, they make the problem worse because of the nature of partisan politics. It's a very tangled web that these people have woven. Could have been avoided, but why would the corrupt powers that be want to avoid it? Zim the Despot, thoughts on withholding all federal funding from states until they get rid of gun control and making firearm safety as mandatory in high schools as sex ed? Agreed. I think that's a great idea. Shlomo Goldenstein, Lolbertarians, LMAO. Cliff Taylor, Clank, I humbly make this post. My family suffered a house fire and now I'm homeless. We started a GoFundMe under Taylor House Fire December 6th, 2022, hoping the clankers can spread the word. Blessings. I feel sorry for you. The reason that I'm not doing a direct shout out video or something like that is for legal reasons more than anything else. But yeah, I mean, you've paid for a shout out, so you get it. I cannot endorse your particular GoFundMe fundraiser. There are very limited instances in which I do such things, again, for my personal legal protection. But yeah, I feel sorry for you. If you're a clanker, people can go and donate to you if they want to. And my hope is that you rebuild and that you prosper. Mr. Wonderful, the withholding of federal funding will just cut the last binding rope holding back succession. Bring it on. I hope they are foolish enough to do it. There won't be any secession. Not a banned account. Biden should repeal term limits, protect democracy. Oh, yeah, here's a good one. House GOP, this is a doomed effort, by the way. House GOP asks again to discuss fentanyl crisis with Biden. House Republicans are requesting a sit-down meeting with President Biden, Stuart Biden, you know him, to discuss the ongoing scourge of fentanyl overdoses after he traveled to Arizona earlier this week, but declined to visit the southern border, telling reporters there were more important things going on. Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, outgoing chairman of the Republican Study Committee, authored the letter obtained by Real Clear Politics. It wasn't the first, however, that Republicans have sent. Yes, they sent it back in October, and I think they sent it last year as well. They want to talk about the fact that drugs are pouring across the border. Let me ask you why this won't happen. You can put your thinking caps on. Why? Because it directly associates with the border crisis, and Biden doesn't give a shit about the border crisis. He doesn't want to be anywhere near the border crisis. Why do you think in the first weeks of his presidency, he very visibly gave Kamala Harris the ignominious task of dealing with it, but still, after 2 years, hasn't required her to even visit the U.S. border? Because the border's a mess. It's still full of kids in cages with little burrito wraps on them. I'm sure Biden finds this hilarious. The Obama cages are still there. The border is unsecure. Drugs are pouring across it. Over a third of all unaccompanied minors given out to so-called relatives or guardians have disappeared from ICE's system. That is, that the family that's supposed to look after them and check up repeatedly and say, yeah, little Jimmy's here, little Pablo or whatever, they're not doing that. Do you know where those kids are, those many thousands of kids? They're slaves right now. They're being raped, they're being worked to death, or they're already dead and they're in a goddamn ditch somewhere. This is peak Bidenism. This is the dysfunction of globalism. There is no shred of care in these people's hearts for the less fortunate. They always proclaim a big game about how much they care about the huddled masses. When you say huddled masses, they see wage slaves. Or worse, they end up on Epstein's Island or something. I'm sure that not everyone that was there was documented, just saying. Unfortunately, not the only place where that happens. Hell, until recently, they were peddling their shit on Twitter. I guess that's the real reason that they're upset, because they can't find 10-year-olds for sale from Libya on Twitter anymore. Probably realistic. Null hypothesis. If the legislatures control all manner and form of state election, all federal officer holders, why can their governor veto election reform, e.g. Arizona? Because that's the way legislation works. Legislation is passed by a House and Senate body and then goes before a governor. And so effectively, if the Supreme Court crazily sides with the federal court system in this, or state court system rather, it's giving the judiciary lopsided power over not just legislative bodies, but executive bodies. The problem is that sets a dangerous precedent for other cases. Oh, no, you can't pass this legislation. Why? Well, because I feel like it. That would be really, really difficult. Tom Pollins, 787 on Rumble. Sticks, do you play games like Fallout on PC? If you were to receive a copy of Subnautica on Steam, would you give a review in a future video if you deem it worthy? I no longer have time for much gaming, to be clear. I have a child, so Yeah, once in a very rare occasion, I play a few hours of Fallout. That's basically it. I'm just waiting for the next Elder Scrolls title. Forge and Anvil. I'm building a small army of clankers at Forge and Anvil, thanks to you. Can we get a shout out today? I'm dropping a third video on advice for single men today. Number 2 dropped earlier this week. Okay, we have Forge and Anvil over on Rumble. By the way, for all of you watching on YouTube, you should be following everyone on Rumble anyway, because YouTube's not defortified the way Twitter is at this moment. Aaron Bennett. U.S. history has shown no party has a permanent lock on Congress or the presidency. That's the only way to shred the uniparty is to either subsume one of the parties or start a third party. Yeah, that's true. My problem is that if you give state courts permanent power over election systems, you will definitely see problems with that. You'll see activism by judges. The problem is if you give it to the legislatures, which is constitutional, you have a different problem. You have a permanent majority in state, maybe not for the nation at large, but you're going to have a permanent locking down of 30 out of the 50 states. And then the huge contest for the rest that the Republicans are doomed to lose because they're not going to get off their asses and do anything. The uniparty doesn't want to. You'll have a permanent Dem majority with a handful of minority unipartyist GOPE types that make a lot of money by playing controlled opposition. Jay Reed. Black kids are coming up to me asking about the small hat people. Did Yi kick the hornet's nest? Their cultural pit bull has turned against them, and Yi has the leash. Been watching for nearly 7 years. I've never had that happen myself. Black kids are coming up to you and asking you about small hat people. Ozzy's Robots, Western media, big tech, government education has been pushing false realities for decades and upending traditional societies. Trump lifted the mask. What's the end game? Global totalitarian rule or something worse? Yes, globalism's idea is to peddle the idea of ending all war, ending all suffering, et cetera, et cetera. We'll all work together, kumbaya. The problem being the people that are making everything work together are grafting off huge proportions of all the wealth. So you'll still have food, but you won't be able to grow it. You'll still have meat. They're not going to actually make you eat the bug burgers. It's just that the meat factory is owned by Bill Gates. That's what's going to happen. They'll control everything. It'll be slavery without shackles. Free-range slavery. You'll be like a free-range chicken under globalism if it's successful, which is why we need to fight back in every way possible, especially by fighting against censorship. Not a bad account. Do you support climate lockdowns or hate the earth? I clearly hate the earth. They will probably try that, by the way, at some point. Well, people aren't allowed to go driving for this week because we're over our CO2 limit, so fuck you. Meanwhile, they'll still be flying around in private jets where they are catered oysters and caviar and shit like that. Next news story. Oregon Supreme Court leaves in place order blocking strict new gun law. The strict new law had been scheduled to take effect on Thursday. Yes, indeed, the Supreme Court of Oregon has blocked the anti-gunnery there pending the case and will not allow it to go through until a full hearing. In light of Bruin, it will be defeated, in my opinion. Washington State, by the way, trying to foist a similar idea on people, they will be unsuccessful too. Bruin is binding. The state Supreme Court and state in general cannot supersede the Bruin decision. There is no legitimacy to the claim that magazine restrictions, forcing people to use low capacity magazines as opposed to standard capacity, 20, 30 bullets, saves lives. It doesn't. There's no evidence to suggest that banning assault weapons will save lives. There's no reason to suspect that trying to track ammo sales or make people pay, I think it's $65 for a gun license, is constitutional, number one, proper, number two, or number three, has any positive impact whatsoever. I keep hearing all these anti-gunners claim, well, this will stop some crimes. Okay, number one, at what cost? And number two, where's your actual statistics? Because I can point to studies showing that gun control is not going to do goddamn anything. So if you've got two studies and they contravene one another, they're both worthless. And in the face of having no actual evidence that isn't contravened, you don't have a constitutional leg to stand on. My belief is that they will shoot down Measure 114. I do not believe that it'll be upheld by the courts. And this is a bellwether of it. Clearly, they think that there are enough issues with it that they're not allowing it to take effect while they consider it, which means that they lean towards not considering it to be constitutional. Again, even if it goes through, and I'd be surprised if it did, the Supreme Court will get the case. They will shoot it down and say, no, you're not allowed to do this. Wasn't Bruin fucking clear? And they're going to get exasperated dealing with these morons in some of these blue states. William, look up Oregon BM114, literally 51% abusing 49%. I think that's literally what I'm referring to. Mr. Wonderful, is it not the case that the only leverage the feds have over states is access to Fed funding? Remove that, and what is the downside of secession? Well, being invaded comes to mind. Falling into disrepair and depression comes to mind. The fact that you would have a counter-revolutionary movement by people that didn't want to secede comes to mind, killing off a large proportion of your population and crippling your economy. ES1776, insert witty and profound comment here. Clank on. So yeah, Oregon's anti-gunnery is on hold. 90% chance that it gets struck down, which is good. And that chance remains true as well for Washington State. Again, there really is no excuse for any gun control in the United States. It's just a matter of time before much of it is eventually eroded away, allowing the Second Amendment to be practiced the way it's meant to be practiced, with mail-order machine guns and RPGs and vending machines. Troy Neenan, Disney has shown how deep in the FTX scam when CFO got rid of CEO is preemptive to being fired. Penny is the language. Who else is showing their hand? Yeah, the FTX thing hits hard across a large proportion of entertainment and banking. And now we have, we'll just do a recap of this with regards to Brittany Griner getting released from the Russian gulag. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we got a hostage released by the Russians. See, the problem is that you traded a fucking basketball player, a half-assed one, for one of the premier arms dealers of the last few decades. He will go back to work, by the way, fucking shit up. He's just not going to be able to do it directly. I guarantee that he's going to meet with Vlad Putin, and Putin's going to say, hey, you got lots of expertise here. We've got some people here to be acolytes to you. We'll give you like $1 billion rubles right now if you just teach them your methodology of how to get AK-47s and explosives to terrorist groups and to militias of usually an ethnic and socialistic composition. Yeah, when 10,000 more people die over the dude's rest of his lifespan, be very interesting now, won't it? Yeah. The first time a terrorist attack is linked to him will be, unfortunately, after Biden has left office. It'll take time to reorient his strategies. Of course, he's been in jail for a while. The world has changed. Now he can use the internet to sell his weapons on the black market. It's been happening in Ukraine already, so why would I expect that we're not going to see AK-47s and RPGs and shit on there too? I think that we will. I think that a lot of criminals are going to get real armed up as a result of this. And by the way, the U.S. Abandoned Mark Fogel, teacher of English language in Russia. He was jailed for basically the same thing as Griner. He had a little bit of pot with him, which is a no-no. I mean, it's still stupid, but it's the same basic charge. And then also Paul Whelan. He's been shit-canned. He's a U.S. Marine. He reacted immediately. He's like, I don't know why I'm still here. They told me that it looked on the up and up, and they'd get me out of here. Now I have to suffer longer. Thanks, Joe. Let's go, Brandon. Musically assured destruction. Imagine the fallout if Victor Bout is caught coordinating smuggling weapons we sent to Ukraine. Likely at some point in the future. But thankfully, people are too fucking stupid to blame Biden for the trade. They'll still cope for him. By the way, no more super chats, please. I've got a few more to go through. I'll rant for a few minutes and go off. Aaron Bennett. No dictatorship is permanent. Globalist authoritarian rule would eventually fail if it initially succeeded. That being said, there are white pills are out there. I agree. The problem is then a balkanization of the global world order would rip apart an economic system that's been entrenched long enough so that it would cause worldwide depression. People might in the end vote for more authoritarianism as a result for that. That's why we need to stop it before it happens at all hazards. EC90, Mary Sticksmith, tip for mulled wine and mince pies. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. For Christmas, it'll be a Christmas ham, squishy squash, of course, cranberry sauce, which I will also be making today. It's sort of a prelude to Christmas meal when you think about it. It's going to be great. Michael Greco, thoughts on DeSantis recently meeting with big donors? Chances he'll run? Well, he's going to meet with donors anyway because he's definitely going to mount a gubernatorial bid in the future at least. I'm sure he's mulling it over. Red Raider Matthias, with the disastrous Griner swap, do you expect Biden's approval rating to go down? So many people pissed. Even the leftists are calling him out. It may go down slightly. I imagine that it'll settle around its old floor, so he'll lose a couple points. Mr. Wonderful, no Marine left behind. Oh, wait. Yeah, if there's a more high priority prisoner, then you have to wait your turn. You have to wait your turn for the drug-addicted lesbian. It's very important to get the sports ball star back, because sports ball uber alles, right? Not a bad account. Chances the Netherlands shuts down their farms. They will try to shut down up to 3,000 of them. They've already openly stated that. Whether the farmers sell or not now becomes the big question. I have a feeling a lot of them won't. It'll be interesting. You'll end up with random farms scattered around the country. Instead of them being near like the urban zones, some random elderly farmer with no kids like, well, they're offering me 200%. Fuck it, you know? Hopefully they can get a fund going to dissuade farmers from going with the government plan by offering the same amount. Just match their amount and then turn it over to a new farm individual, or compact the farms. Maybe the next door neighbor farmer is like, well, you know, I'm growing all this endive, but I can't keep up with demand. And I need another field, and there's no free land in the Netherlands. Oh, shit, my neighbor's selling. That sounds intriguing. Help subsidize the movement of farms from family to family when necessary. Brazen Raven, the man who armed the Taliban, armed by the man who armed the Taliban with better guns, like rain on your wedding day, don't you think? Yes, indeed. Ultramaga 721, Arizona governor's race. Will it end up in the Supreme Court? I do not have the answer to that. That one is definitely more up in the air. And that Manx guy sent $5 without a comment. Thank you very much anyway. So yeah, there's your live stream for Friday, keeping it a little bit short again. I'll try to go longer, like starting next week. It's just, I have to have enough topics. I have to have enough energy. And as a dad, that can be hit or miss. And of course, scheduling. Everything is fucking insane. One thing I'm happy about, I have completed the work number 410 for the occult literature series. So that'll be out soon. It's already with the illustrator. So she's illustrating the 10 illustrations for it. It's an herbal. I decided to end the year on a festive herbal note because I like herbals, especially ones from the middle of the 1800s. This one's good. It's Taylor's herbal. I have heavily edited it. The original format of the text was not so good, just to be clear. It took me a little bit longer. It's like they halfway through the work, they stopped going in alphabetical order inexplicably. Then they add an index, which makes absolutely no goddamn sense because you haven't even put the entries in order, so I redacted that. It took days to reconfigure the entire work, and it's not a long work anyway. So yeah, lots and lots of good shit going on. And of course, on Monday, we will resume live streaming. I'm taking the weekend off from both streams and from literature. What the hell am I going to do with my time? One more, Joshua R. Paulson. What do you think of Elon's statement that he'll keep the shadow banning system, but will make them transparent and give a path to redemption? I don't believe in shadow banning, although I do believe he is adjusting the methodology behind it. So it's not quite the same as the shadow banning that was going on. It's effectively the lack of boosting content explicitly just because it's part of a viral hash if it comes from an account that's doing wonky shit. That's a little better. In the old way, it was basically, no, you can't put anything out there. You can't speak at all. This appears to be deboosting only related to trending. We'll see what happens. Of course, I'll criticize him openly at the time if it's anything that's censorious. That's about all.